On the eve of the typhoon, my husband abandoned me and the cat to go find his white moonlight. He said, "She's timid. She's always been most afraid of thunder and rain. I'll feel more at ease if I go stay with her for a while." I watched his back as he walked away. Then I packed his luggage and attached 2 copies of the divorce agreement. Get out. I'm not afraid of the rain. And I don't need you either. Chapter 1. On the eve of the typhoon's arrival, I was holding the cat and about to go to sleep. But my husband was clutching his phone, his expression grave. All of a sudden, he threw on his coat and said, "I need to go out for a while." Thunder and lightning were raging outside. What urgent matter could possibly require him to leave at a time like this? There was a faint trace of anxiety in Pablo's voice. "The typhoon is coming. Selena has been terrified of thunder and rain since she was little. She just came back to the country, and her apartment doesn't have any supplies stocked up. The balcony windows haven't been reinforced either. I'm going to check on her. Everyone will feel more at ease that way." That sentence landed like a slap across my face. Selena was Pablo's college classmate. She was also his first love. 8 years ago, she went abroad to study, and the two of them broke up with regret. Now it had been less than a week since she returned, and he already could not wait to go care for her. For once, I became stubborn. "Are you really going to leave me home alone at a time like this? If you can't stop worrying about Selena, why can you stop worrying about me?" A trace of hesitation appeared on Pablo's face, but he quickly shook his head. "The house is very safe. There's nothing for me to worry about." He was right. The house had plenty of dry food and drinking water stored. The doors and windows had all been reinforced too. I had done it all little by little myself. Pablo was always busy with work and never paid attention to these small things. But it turned out that he could worry after all. Worry about another woman. As if he could not wait even one more second to fly to her side. Pain spread through my chest, and I said coldly, "Pablo, if you insist on leaving, then don't come back." But the only thing he left me with was that expressionless face of his. "Julia, stop making a scene. If anything happens to Selena, you won't be able to bear the responsibility." Chapter 2. I do not know how long Pablo had been gone. The wind and rain outside came in stronger and stronger waves. The lights in the room began flickering on and off. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the door lock turning. The cat jumped off the bed before I could. The two of us ran to the door one after the other. Sure enough, I saw Pablo pushing the door open and walking in. He was soaked through, his face pale. He had probably fallen somewhere, because there was a streak of blood on his forehead. In that instant, concern overcame anger. I was almost about to blurt out a reproachful complaint, but Pablo turned slightly to one side and said to the person behind him, "Selena, don't be shy. Come in." I watched helplessly as Selena edged inside step by step. In that instant, my mind went completely blank. So Pablo had not only gone to check on Selena, he had brought her back home as well. Selena gave me an apologetic smile. "Julia, my shoes are wet, so I got the floor dirty. I'll have to trouble you to clean it up." But aside from her shoes and socks, hardly any part of her was wet, probably because someone had been holding her in his arms the entire way back. I stood rigidly in the entryway, blocking the two of them from coming in, and so the three of us remained locked in a standoff, until Pablo awkwardly ran a hand through his dripping wet hair. "Julia, Selena has nothing at home. She's been busy doing experiments and writing reports. How could she have had the energy to go buy supplies? If the water or power gets cut off, she won't even be able to get a hot meal. That's why I brought her home. Our house has everything. One extra person won't make any difference, right?" Pablo's arrangements were so thorough, as if he had not realized at all that he had brought Selena into our home without discussing it with me. Chapter 3. I could not throw Selena out. The typhoon had already arrived, and the rain was pouring down in sheets. Streetlights and trees had all been blown over. Forcing a fragile woman out in weather like this would be no different from killing her. And yet, a dark voice kept echoing inside me. "Why not? Julia, this is your home. Why shouldn't you throw her out?" A long, bitter ache spread through my throat, and I numbly stepped back into the living room. All I could hear was Pablo attentively fussing over Selena. "You can sleep in the guest room. The bedding was just changed. It's very clean. There are disposable toothbrushes in the bathroom drawer. Do you need a fresh towel?" All at once. I found it a little laughable. Pablo was always busy with work and came home late every night. He rarely did any housework either. I had thought he had no idea where anything in the house was kept. So it turned out he knew after all. Selena went into the bathroom to shower. Only then did Pablo finally call my name. Julia. Say something too. Selena is a guest. After all, you could be a little warmer. Warmer? I raised my eyes and looked at him, then asked calmly, did you get my permission before bringing her here? If someone enters without the owner's permission, then she isn't a guest. The sound of running water in the bathroom did not completely drown out my voice. I did that on purpose. Pablo panicked. Just as expected, he pulled me into the bedroom. Only after the door was shut did he lower his voice to apologize. I'm sorry, Julia. If you want to hit me or scold me, go ahead. But Selena is still my old classmate. She's in trouble, and I can't just stand by and do nothing. And with so many classmates watching, I suddenly frowned. Classmates? What do your classmates have to do with this? Selena had asked for help in the university group chat, and the apartment she lived in was only 300 meters from my house. Pablo looked troubled. We live so close. If I didn't help Selena, what would our classmates think of me? And what would they think of you? Julia, I know you're worried I still have feelings for her, but if it had been any classmate today, I would have brought her home too. Don't worry. He took my hand and gave it a light shake. You are my wife, right now. The only person I love is you. I froze. Pablo had always been cold and reserved. Even after 3 years of marriage, he had rarely spoken words of love to me. At this moment, was this his true feeling? Or was it just a temporary measure to make me agree to let Selena stay? I had not even had time to respond when a sudden scream came from outside the door. Selena cried out, "It hurts! Help me!" Chapter 4. My cat had always been well behaved. When friends came over, she would expose her belly. But at this moment, she shrank back into the corner warily, letting out a hissing sound, and on the back of Selena's delicate hand, fine beads of blood were already seeping out from the scratches. A subtle surge of delight suddenly rose inside me. See? Selena is the intruder in this home. Even the cat does not welcome her. Pablo's expression changed immediately. He crossed the room in a few quick strides to get the medicine kit. Don't move. I'll put medicine on it. Don't worry. Alice has been vaccinated. She doesn't carry any infectious diseases. She never scratches people. Maybe the weather is so bad today that she got frightened. His tone was full of guilt, but even more than that, it carried the indulgent affection of saying, my cat didn't do anything wrong. The heart I had just lifted sank back down all at once. Maybe I really was being overly sensitive and suspicious. Selena had been scratched by the cat. Yet Pablo was siding with the cat. Maybe when it came to her, all he really had left was a bit of old classmate affection. I picked up the trembling Alice and kissed her on the head. Selena probably felt a little embarrassed, because she secretly glanced at me. I didn't mean to either. I thought the cat still remembered me. My hand stopped in the middle of stroking Alice. Pablo and I had been married for 3 years. Alice had also been with us for 3 years. Pablo and Selena had broken up 8 years ago. He had always told me that after the breakup, they had never seen each other again. So why would my cat know Selena? As if she had noticed my shock. Selena lowered her head and let out a soft sigh. Back then, I was the one who brought Alice home. I fed her goat's milk and took her for vaccinations. She liked me a lot. So time really is a knife. After a few years apart, even people forget, let alone a cat. Chapter 5. Alice originally belonged to Selena? Pablo had never once mentioned this to me. My heart gave a heavy thud, and I turned around and carried the cat back to the bedroom. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Pablo handing the cotton swab to Selena before hurrying after me. He must have seen the traces of tears at the corner of my eyes. Because his gaze flickered, he frowned and explained to me, the cat was bought by her, but after raising it for half a year, she had to go abroad. She had no choice but to leave it with a friend. Later, that friend was going to emigrate too, and it just so happened that we were getting married. And you also like cats and dogs. That was why Pablo had asked me if I wanted to take in a cat. I still remember the day Pablo and I went to his friend's house to bring Alice home. At the time, I was bursting with joy. I hugged her, kissed her, and laughed. I could not believe I was about to have such a beautiful little angel. But back then, what had Pablo been thinking? Was it, I fulfilled her wish? Or was it, the pet we raised together has come back to my side? My lips trembled. The heaviness in my chest could neither be breathed out nor swallowed down. I let out a cold laugh and questioned Pablo. Alice is a cat your ex-girlfriend bought. Why didn't you tell me that 3 years ago? Were you afraid that if I minded, I wouldn't agree to keep her? Pablo fell silent. He lowered his gaze, and only after a long while did he say, if it bothers you, you can give her back to Selena. 3 years. A whole 3 years. 1,000 days and nights. I had long since treated Alice as family, and Pablo could say so lightly that I could give her back to Selena. Then what about me? What about all the effort and care I had poured into her? I forced a few words out through clenched teeth. Pablo, tonight, you're sleeping in the study. Chapter 6. It was already late at night. The wind was growing stronger and stronger. Even the glass was humming from the force of it. Alice was snoring evenly at my feet, but I kept tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep no matter what. In the end, I simply got up, opened my phone, and refreshed my social feed. The typhoon making landfall was a major event, and all the local friends were sharing updates about how things were at home. Some were optimistic, some were complaining, and some were joking through the hardship. And just half an hour earlier, Selena had also posted an update saying she was safe. Thank you to my old classmate for taking me in. It makes me feel very safe. Rose. The photo had been taken looking out from the window of my home's guest bedroom. In the bottom corner, part of the pale blue curtain was visible. I stared at it and suddenly felt that it looked so unfamiliar. Why did it feel unfamiliar? From the renovation to the finishing touches, I had been the one in charge of this home. I had picked the pattern of every single curtain myself. I should have been very familiar with it. Perhaps it was because today, it had become nothing more than a backdrop for Selena. Over the years, I had added quite a few of Pablo's friends on social media too. These people, who never once chatted with me, were now enthusiastically leaving comments under Selena's post. Do you have enough food and drinks there? Stay safe. Until one mutual friend finally noticed something. Oh, that view outside the window looks just like one Pablo posted before. Don't tell me you're staying at his place. Congrats on getting back together. And then, even more people started commenting. Nice. I knew he never forgot you. Invite me to the wedding. It was as if no one remembered that Pablo was already married. That his wife was me. A wave of sadness with no clear source rose in my chest. For the past 3 years, I had poured my heart into building a home with Pablo. I had thought it was our fortress. Indestructible. I had never imagined that one day it could also shelter another person. No, not just today. Maybe Selena had stayed here long before this. I clenched my phone so hard that my knuckles turned white, and just when I was almost unable to stop myself from going mad, I saw Pablo's reply. He replied to that mutual friend. Bro, don't get the wrong idea. My wife and I both welcome Selena. We're just helping each other through a hard time. Fist salute. Chapter 7. Should I be happy? Pablo speaking up was the strongest proof that my marriage with him was stable. It also proved that he and Selena were completely innocent. But why did my heart still hurt so much? Probably because Pablo had never once mentioned me publicly on his social media. Back when we were newly married, we took wedding photos. I went through 400 pictures again and again, and finally chose 4. Pablo, I'm going to post these. Do you want to post them too? But he only glanced at them and coldly shook his head. I have my advisor and many highly respected leaders in the industry on WeChat. It wouldn't look good if they saw them. Later, when we got married, it was only a small lawn wedding. I happily planned the seating arrangements. Pablo, how many tables do we need for your teachers, classmates, and co-workers? He instinctively frowned. Only a few of the closest ones will come. You know my work has confidentiality requirements. It's not suitable to make a big fuss. At the time, I told myself I understood that he was a low-key person. But now, he could mention me after all. Why? Curled up under the blanket, I only felt as if my head were splitting apart. Before I could think of an answer, the message alert on my phone suddenly started going off like crazy. I had been added to a group chat. There were 6 or 7 people in the group, all of them Pablo's university classmates. I had never chatted with any of them before, so why had they added me? I was still confused when the messages in the group suddenly seized my breath. Pablo is still such a man. One sentence from him was enough to prove Selena isn't the kind of slut who wrecks other people's families. Exactly. Love should be clean and spotless. Who would have thought that after all these years, the campus couple I shipped back then would still be handing out sugar? Chapter 8. My WeChat name is Julieta, and at first glance it looks very much like a real name. Pablo really did have a university classmate with that exact name. Probably one of his classmates added me back then and never even bothered to change the note. So years later, when they made a small group chat, through sheer coincidence they pulled me in by mistake. And that also let me find out that, in these people's eyes, even after so many years, Pablo and Selena were still such a perfect match. In the 3 years of our marriage, it wasn't as if I had never tried to get close to Pablo's friends, but I truly could not fit into that circle. Every one of them was a top student from a prestigious school, and the things they talked about were obscure and profound. I couldn't understand them, and they didn't want me to understand them either, so I rarely attended Pablo's class reunions with him. The most recent time was the welcome dinner for Selena, who had just returned after finishing her studies abroad. At the time, I still did not know that she was Pablo's ex. I even joked with the person sitting next to me. Selena is so beautiful and elegant. She practically shines. She must have had a lot of people chasing after her in university, right? The woman beside me was the most approachable one among Pablo's classmates. When she heard me say that, she stared at me with a strange expression. Julia, you really don't know? Back in university, Selena was Pablo's girlfriend. Chapter 9. To avoid embarrassment, I should have left the group chat, but instead, almost as if I were tormenting myself, I read every single sentence from every single person in that group. They were talking about Selena's academic achievements in Country M. They were talking about Pablo's recent project results. And in the end, they concluded, now that's what you call a perfect match. A couple made in heaven. Pablo's wife doesn't even know what SCI is. Who knows what tricks she used to climb into that position? They won't last. I let out a bitter laugh. And as I laughed, tears rolled down uncontrollably. Exhausted, I turned off my phone, but that group became lively again. Someone had shared a few videos. I was cleaning out my cloud storage the other day, and that's when I found the videos I took back when we were seeing Selena off abroad. Let me show everyone, and we can reminisce about our youth. I knew I should not keep watching, and yet, I still tapped them open, probably because my heart already hurt so much. A little more pain would not make a difference. 8 years ago, Pablo and Selena had broken up peacefully. Even the campus power couple could not escape the trials of graduation season. Selena had applied for graduate school in Country M, and Pablo's field involved cutting-edge technology, so going abroad was restricted for him. Both of them had put their careers ahead of love, so the breakup had seemed only natural. At the farewell party that day, both Pablo and Selena had been drinking, swaying unsteadily, amid the chaotic background noise of the karaoke room. I heard Selena waving her arms as she shouted at Pablo. Pablo, listen carefully. Your future wife can't be prettier than me, can't have bigger breasts than me, can't be smarter than me, and definitely can't come from a better family than me. She has to be inferior to me in every way. That way, you'll never forget me for the rest of your life. A drunk person has no reason at all. That demand was utterly outrageous. But Pablo downed the drink in his glass in one gulp, and then said, okay. Chapter 10. Pablo and I met on a trip. When we started dating, everyone was shocked. Back then, even my roommate had hinted around the subject and asked me what my secret was. I mean, your boyfriend is really handsome, and he's such a top student. How did you win him over? Don't tell me you're just really good in bed. I had also heard countless people gossiping behind my back about why Pablo would marry me. One's an associate professor at a university, with a brilliant future ahead of him, and handsome too. The other graduated from some mediocre second-tier college and is just drifting through life at a small company. They're not well matched. They really aren't. At the time, I prided myself on being strong inside, even when I heard all those cutting remarks. No matter how much they hurt, I would still put on the righteous expression of someone who believed that true love could overcome anything. If it wasn't love, then why would Pablo have married me? Pablo had never lacked for high-quality admirers around him. If he chose me, then it must have been because he loved me. Even someone as ordinary as me must have had something worth loving, right? Maybe it was because I was cheerful and loved to smile. Pablo had once said that when work frustrated him, just seeing me smile would make him happy too. Maybe it was because I was sensible and considerate. When Pablo stayed up late working overtime, I never pressured him to spend time with me. I only prepared late-night snacks for him. Maybe it was because I was patient. Pablo's grandmother had dementia and loved pulling people into long stories. His parents had no patience for it. But I could sit with the old woman all day. I had thought Pablo saw those shining points in me. Now that I think about it, it's almost laughable. The truth was, Pablo married me because I was not as good as Selena. That way, he would never forget her. I suddenly remembered that at the banquet welcoming Selena back to the country. The instant their eyes met, Pablo, who was always so composed, seemed strangely flustered. He pressed a hand to my shoulder and introduced me to Selena, my wife. Julia, we're very happy now. He put extra emphasis on the latter half. A man who was always so cold and self-possessed had suddenly exposed our love to the public. I had been a little at a loss and could only smile foolishly. Selena smiled too. She warmly took my hand. A pleasure to meet you. Thinking back on it now, that smile Selena gave me carried a deeper meaning. Chapter 11. I did not sleep all night. At 9 in the morning, the wind and rain outside had weakened. The typhoon that had terrified everyone had already passed. Some things could be brought to an end now as well. With dark circles under my eyes, I got up, opened a can for the cat, and made breakfast for myself. The gas had been cut off, but I had stocked a portable stove. The milk was bubbling away, and the smell was warm and inviting. Only when I dropped the oats into the pot did I realize someone was standing behind me. I had no idea how long Pablo had been watching me. He wore a smile on his face and cautiously reached out to wrap an arm around my waist. Julia, I reflected on everything last night. Bringing Selena home was inconsiderate of me. Hiding Alice's background from you was wrong too. I swear I won't hide anything from you again. Don't be angry anymore, okay? Let me sleep in the bedroom again. His tone was almost humble in the way he was trying to please me. It was hard to imagine that someone as untouchably aloof as Pablo could lower himself like this. And shamefully, my heart wavered. No matter how fiercely the storm raged outside, my home was still quiet and peaceful. This was the warmest picture I used to imagine. I could let this warmth continue, as long as I ignored the fact that another woman was living in my home too, and that my entire purpose in existing was to make sure she would not be forgotten. My heart ached unbearably. Using the last of my reason, I pushed Pablo away. Is there anything else you want to say? The milk oatmeal porridge in the pot was already done. Pablo lowered his head to look at it, then hesitated before saying, "There's also, Selena is lactose intolerant. She can't drink milk. Could you make her something else for breakfast?" Chapter 12. The hand I had braced against the counter was trembling slightly. I heard my own voice. It was steady. It was calm. "You want me to make breakfast for Selena?" Pablo sensed my resistance. A few seconds later, he said, "A guest is a guest. We can't very well let her go hungry. If you don't want to do it, I'll make it myself." In the 3 years of our marriage, Pablo had almost never cooked, much less made breakfast. Once, when we were on vacation and I had painful cramps, he packed up breakfast from the hotel buffet and brought it to my bed. That alone had made me endlessly happy. But something he would not do for his wife, he would do for Selena. Something deep inside me collapsed. It made me almost instinctively grab the milk bottle at hand and throw it straight at him. Pablo was caught off guard, and the milk splashed all over his hair and face. He shuddered, and a flicker of darkness passed through his eyes. "What are you doing?" I stared blankly at Pablo. The soft light fell across his long eyelashes. He looked every bit the polished gentleman, elegant and refined. Falling in love with him had once been as easy as breathing, but it turned out that falling out of love was not all that hard either. While wiping the milk off himself with tissues, Pablo said in a low voice, "Julia, I already apologized. Don't make a big deal out of this." Make a big deal out of this? Pablo was still being too polite. What he really wanted to say was probably that I did not know when to stop. A man as high and mighty as he was, for him to apologize to me in person was already an act of charity, and yet I still did not appreciate it. I laughed. If Selena won't drink the milk, then isn't it perfectly fitting for it to end up all over you? Chapter 13. Pablo's face changed instantly. He probably found it hard to imagine that I, usually gentle and well-behaved, could have such a sharp tongue, and at that very moment, a timid voice rang out. At some point, Selena had also walked to the kitchen doorway. She clasped her hands together in front of her chest. Julia, please, don't let me affect your relationship with Pablo, otherwise, I'll feel guilty. She was wearing the new pajamas I had just bought, sleeping on the sheets I had washed, saying she felt so safe in my home, and then telling me she did not want to ruin my marriage. In an instant, there was nothing in my ears but a harsh buzzing, but I still pressed my lips into a smile. Then please, get out of my house. Selena's tears came the moment she wanted them to. She lifted her chin and gave a defeated smile. Julia, I think you've misunderstood me very deeply. If I had anywhere else to go, I wouldn't have come to your house. I only came because Pablo invited me. If I had known my coming here would make you unhappy, I absolutely never would have come. By the time she finished those few sentences, tears were already falling nonstop down her face. Pablo's gaze darkened, and he handed her a tissue. This isn't your fault, so that meant it was my fault. I was not tolerant enough, not generous enough, not numb enough. I could not endure the two of them exchanging glances and rekindling old feelings right under my nose. Tired, I waved a hand. Instead of saying all this useless nonsense, you'd better leave early and stop being an eyesore. The veins on Pablo's forehead stood out. Julia, she is my guest. If you have any complaints, take them out on me. Don't make things difficult for her. My eyes blazed. How do you know I won't take it out on you? The rain has stopped. Take her home. I already did everything I could by sheltering her through the most dangerous night. Tear tracks crossed Selena's face. She looked at me, then at Pablo, as if waiting for Pablo to stand up for her. But very quickly, disappointment flashed through her eyes. Pablo kept a stern face and picked up an umbrella. Selena, I'll take you home. Within a few minutes, the two of them were ready to leave, but I called out Selena's name. She frowned at me. Julia, if you want me to stay, I said. The night when the typhoon passed through was the most dangerous. Selena, I spared your worthless life. You should be thanking me. Chapter 14. Before Pablo left, he left me with one sentence. I'll come back and explain it to you. What could he possibly explain now? Don't waste the effort. There is no way to salvage our relationship anymore. From the moment he brought Selena home, I wiped away the dampness at the corners of my eyes and took a suitcase out of the storage room. I stuffed Pablo's clothes, laptop, charger, and everything else into it. Then I took out 2 copies of an agreement from the back of the wardrobe. I had asked a lawyer to draft them in the first year of my marriage to Pablo. I have forgotten what we were arguing about then. It was probably some trivial little thing. That day, I cried so hard, but Pablo dissolved all my grievances with a single kiss. He said, I've always known marriage isn't easy, so, Julia, let's both try hard and keep it going for as long as we can, okay? Pablo's parents had a loveless marriage that existed in name only. He told me that when he was little, what he feared most was hearing his parents quarrel. When they fought, I would hide under the covers and curl myself into a tiny little ball. Sometimes I even thought that if I didn't exist, I wouldn't have to hear them fighting. Julia, let's not fight, okay? How ridiculous. I had worked so hard to be his wife. I had shown filial respect to his parents and elders. I had socialized with his teachers and classmates. I had been considerate of his emotions. So why was I the only one making an effort? Pablo said he would never hide anything from me. He was a liar. I put the suitcase and the documents by the door, then locked the bedroom door from the inside. Alice followed me every step of the way. Her round eyes were wide open, full of curiosity. She thought I was playing some new and interesting game. What a silly little thing. In that instant, I almost wanted to burst into sobs, but I held it in. This was not the time to cry yet. I buried my face in the soft fur at my cat's neck. Don't worry, I will still love you. Chapter 15. Pablo came back quickly, and he immediately realized that I had locked the door. Through the video doorbell, he explained anxiously. Selena asked for help in the class group, and everyone was watching. If I didn't help her, people would say I was narrow-minded. And besides, saving a life is worth more than building a 7-story pagoda. If something had happened to her, would your conscience really be at peace? More grand principles again. If reason and morality actually worked, why were there still so many shameless, despicable men and women in this world? My heart tightened violently, and I demanded sharply, Pablo, why did you marry me? After Selena, you dated 3 other women, but in the end, you chose me. Out of all your exes, I'm the least beautiful, the least educated, and I have the least impressive job, so why did you choose me to marry? Was it because you promised Selena you would find a wife who was inferior to her, right? Pablo froze. His voice came out hoarse with guilt. How did you find out about that? He did not deny it, and he had not forgotten it either. But he reacted quickly and tried to explain. It was drunken nonsense. No one took it seriously. The reason I married you was of course because I love you. Julia, you're 1,000 times, 10,000 times better than Selena. He seemed very sincere, but I cut him off immediately. Then why did you ask me to make breakfast for her? Silence. A silence so complete that I could almost hear Pablo's hurried breathing. He seemed to want to say something, yet no matter what, the words would not come out. And suddenly, I felt a little relieved. I was not the one who had failed this relationship. So when it ended, the one who should be shattered with regret should not be me either. Chapter 16. Over the next few days, Pablo came to see me almost every day. He also sent quite a few people to persuade me. The most worked up one was my former roommate, the one who once asked me for my secret. She came by carrying a fruit basket. Looking around at the home Pablo and I had shared, she clicked her tongue in amazement. Such a beautiful house. And you're really just giving it up like that? Julia, your husband is handsome and capable. Being able to marry him is your good fortune. Don't be so dramatic. The moment you divorce him, hundreds or thousands of women will throw themselves at him. By then, it'll be too late for you to regret it. I ignored her completely and smiled faintly. If he's really that wonderful, then why does he need to ask you to come persuade me? My former roommate left in defeat. I also took the opportunity to find an apartment and move out. Pablo could only come wait for me at my company, but it just so happened that I was sent to a branch office in another city, and I left without a word, taking Alice with me, so all he could do was return empty-handed. I blocked all of Pablo's contact methods, leaving only one phone number open in case he finally sent word agreeing to the divorce. He sent me long message after long message, and every so often, he would appear outside my company building, but I never got the reply I was waiting for, the signed divorce agreement. I knew he was dragging things out on purpose. He was probably thinking that humiliation, too, could fade with time, that once I had forgotten the pain after the wound healed, we could simply get back together. So I consulted a lawyer and filed for divorce. On the day the court notice was delivered, Pablo came again to my company dormitory. It happened to be raining that day too. Only the rain was nowhere near as fierce as on the night of the typhoon. Pablo was drenched from head to toe, his face full of pain. I promise I'll never contact Selena again, and I absolutely won't hide anything from you ever again. Didn't we say we'd walk through life together? Why do you have to be so cruel? Julia, you can't even bear to abandon Alice. So why can't you forgive me? Looking at how miserable he was, I could not help wanting to laugh, and I really did laugh. What right do you have to compare yourself to Alice? My cat's whole heart, her whole world, is me. When have you ever done the same? Pablo, why do your friends look down on me and even now still try to push you and Selena back together? Because of you, you look down on me, so your friends could never possibly respect me either. In the past, because I loved you, I forced myself to shut out those outside voices. But all of this storm was brought into my life by you. Chapter 17. Pablo left. I had thought he would finally give up trying to win me back. Instead, He publicly posted a photo of the two of us on social media, standing by each other through wind and rain. Thank you for walking with me all this way. I finally understand that marrying you has been the greatest happiness of my life. This was the first time in 3 years of marriage that he had ever posted a photo related to me. Those mutual acquaintances tactfully left likes on it, but Selena did not. The group chat I had been mistakenly dragged into, silent for days, finally became lively again. Weren't they living together with Selena before? Why is he suddenly showing off his love now? Maybe his wife forced him to post it, out of jealousy or something. I still prefer shipping Pablo with Selena. His wife doesn't look that ugly after makeup. She still can't compare to Selena. You see, one fake social media post is useless. Real devotion sinks into the bones. It doesn't need to be proven to outsiders. I took screenshots of the group chat and sent them to Pablo. Stop trying so hard. It's embarrassing. Then I sent the divorce case filing receipt to the group. Everyone, enjoy shipping as much as you want. He cheated during the marriage, so feel free. And besides that, I sincerely wish that one day in the future, you'll all find yourselves in the same situation. Heart. After leaving the group chat, I opened my contacts and deleted those sanctimonious people one by one. Once I finished, the whole world felt quieter. I could peacefully stay in my own little world, raising my cat, reading, working, and waiting for the divorce hearing. Life was very calm, until a few weeks later, I received a phone call. Pablo's mother said furiously. Pablo was hit by a truck on his way home from work. Why aren't you coming to take care of him? Julia, until the divorce is finalized, you still have to fulfill your duties as his wife. I yawned, utterly unmoved. Auntie, you should be calling Selena. Not long ago, Pablo helped her avoid a life-threatening situation. Now it's the perfect chance for her to repay the favor. Chapter 18. Pablo's mother was an executive at a publicly listed company and devoted herself entirely to her career. She had never liked me very much. Perhaps she would have preferred someone as polished and accomplished as Selena for a daughter-in-law. In that case, why should I keep trying to earn her approval? But she actually let out a cold snort. Selena? How could she possibly take care of Pablo? She doesn't even know how to make chicken soup. Her tone softened, and so did her posture. Pablo injured his right hand. If it doesn't heal properly, it will affect his future life. Julia, if you come take care of him, I'll feel the most at ease. I always tell Pablo that when choosing a wife, he should find someone like you, sensible and virtuous, so that he can focus on working hard outside without worry. I smiled faintly. But I'm working out of town. Auntie, I just got promoted. My salary doubled, and I'm always working overtime. I really can't get away. She must not have expected me to refuse again and again, because her voice grew darker. He is your husband, I replied lightly. Not for much longer. The phone call ended abruptly. I could almost picture Pablo's mother raging with fury. She had probably never imagined that obedient little me would one day disobey her. She prided herself on being a powerful career woman, and I had heard her more than once encouraging the girls in the family to study hard. You should become people who contribute to society, not bury your talents inside the family. Yet when it came to her own son, the daughter-in-law she preferred was still one who knew how to take care of her husband. Surprisingly, I wasn't angry. Not only because people who aren't worth it don't deserve my anger, but also because, when someone already dislikes you, the best way to live is in a way that makes them dislike you even more. Winter passed, and spring arrived. I was successfully promoted to vice president of the company, and then the date of our first court hearing finally arrived. Only then did I learn that Pablo's right hand had never fully recovered, and it had been left with a tremor. To a certain extent, it affected his work and his social life. During pretrial mediation, he cried with genuine emotion, so it was no surprise that the divorce was not granted. After the hearing, Pablo walked toward me holding a red velvet box and smiling. Julia, I brought you a gift. Think of it as celebrating the continuation of our marriage. Pablo looked up at me. His posture was almost reverent, expressionless. I gave it a faint glance. Heh, diamonds. If I want something, I can buy it myself. Don't trouble yourself. Chapter 19. Half a year later, I filed for divorce again. I had thought I would be able to receive the judgment quietly and peacefully, but during the proceedings, Pablo and I were once again dragged into the center of public attention. Of course, not by choice. The central figure of the incident was Selena. She had gone camping overnight in the suburbs with a married man. His wife found out and exposed them. By coincidence, that furious wife was one of the people from that old group chat who had enthusiastically shipped their CP. Out of rage, she began lashing out online without restraint. Selena, you and my husband are our schoolmates. I thought everyone knew each other and would at least keep some dignity, but I never expected you to be this shameless. Back when you moved into Pablo's house and caused his wife to ask for a divorce, I was even speaking up for you. I never imagined you were a habitual homewrecker all along. Selena, do you like spreading your legs that much? Then I'll help announce it to the whole world and let everyone come looking for you. She even sent a ceremonial banner to Selena's workplace. On it were the words, knowingly the other woman. That completely ruined Selena's reputation in her circle. It seemed that if the whip never landed on your own body, you would never know how much it hurt. I read all that gossip with great relish. I even thoughtfully left a comment under the post. Congratulations. If I had known my words were this accurate, I would have said a few more. Chapter 20. On the day I successfully received the divorce judgment, Pablo cried very hard. He knelt in front of me and asked me over and over again what exactly he needed to do for me to change my mind. He said the injury to his arm would probably never heal for the rest of his life, and that even buttoning his shirt was difficult. His mother kept forcing him to go on blind dates, which annoyed him endlessly. Because of his depression and the immense pressure, his work had shown no progress at all. Selena's public downfall had also affected his social circle, so that no matter where he went, he was met with meaningful, mocking looks. He muttered to himself, "It's all because of that typhoon coming to the city. It's all because Selena played tricks on me. Otherwise, I would still be with my wife." I had thought I might feel sympathy for Pablo, but hearing all that, the only thing left in my heart was contempt. His regret and his downfall were all of his own making. His loneliness and his despair were the consequences he had brought upon himself. Calmly, I pushed away the hands he stretched toward me and said each word clearly. Pablo, may we never meet again. Chapter 21. Extra chapter. Ever since Pablo could remember, his parents had often fought. More than once, he had thought that if only his mother were a little gentler, things would be better. The mother of the neighbor's child was exactly that kind of gentle woman, so their family was very harmonious. Sometimes the husband would yell at her, and she would only lower her head and say nothing. In the future, he thought, it would be best for him to have a gentle wife too. So after breaking up with Selena, he was only downcast for a few months before letting it go. She was beautiful, yes, but her personality was too strong. When she argued with him over right and wrong, she was always aggressive and pressing. She was not suited to be his wife, but Julia was different. He and she were not from the same world at all. In terms of looks, education, intelligence, prospects, or family background, he completely overshadowed her. He gave her, an orphan with both parents gone, a home. He even gave her the title of professor's wife, allowing her to rise in class. So of course, she would be grateful. And in fact, she really was. Pablo had been very satisfied with such a stable marriage, until Selena returned to the country. It was not as if he had failed to notice the signals she was sending that she wanted to get back together. He found her a little ridiculous. Back then, when studies and love had been placed in front of her, she had chosen the former. How could there possibly be any reversal now? But even so, he had to admit that being remembered by the campus beauty from years ago felt pretty good. And with his friends adding fuel to the fire, he even started to feel that if sparks really did fly again, it would make for a beautiful story. So after Selena sent that message, I'm all alone in the apartment. I'm so scared. His heart began to waver. It was not as though he had not realized Julia would be angry. But so what if she got angry? She loved him. She could not leave him. But everything went far beyond what he had expected. In front of Selena, Julia had become like a cat with its fur standing on end. She had even questioned him, asking why he wanted her to make breakfast for Selena. Pablo had always prided himself on being quick-tongued and eloquent. But at that moment, cold sweat covered him, and he was left speechless. He simply did not dare say it. Bringing Selena home had indeed been driven partly by a man's instinct to protect. But even more importantly, Pablo had wanted to show off. Look, my wife obeys me in everything. She's not like you were back then. If he had known what kind of disastrous consequences that little act of showing off would bring, he would never, ever have done it. On the way to take Selena home, Pablo was still thinking that Julia seemed to be truly angry this time, and wondering how he should soothe her, but he never imagined that she would bring up divorce. At first, Pablo thought she was making a mountain out of a molehill. Then he became furious. He had already promised that he would stop contacting Selena, so why would she still refuse to believe him? And yet she was that determined. Moving out, going to another city, refusing to reply to any of his messages. She could not even bear to abandon the cat she had raised for 3 years. So how could she cast aside the husband she had lived with for 3 years just like that? Pablo had even thought, should he just let it go? There are always other women. But it was only then that he realized he could not live without Julia. Without her, the house always felt empty and lifeless. He had once thought that because Julia was not beautiful or brilliant, he held the superior position in the relationship. But only now did he realize that the one who had taken more was himself, and the one who had ruined everything was also himself. On the day Selena got into trouble, he witnessed the hysterics of his classmate's wife, while slapping her husband again and again. She cursed him furiously. We're all adults. You've eaten what should be eaten, seen what should be seen. Don't even think about pretending to be innocent when it comes to that sort of thing between a man and a woman. I worked myself to the bone taking care of this home for you, and you went off to play at ambiguity with someone else. You really are that shameless. She was cursing her own husband, but Pablo's face burned hot. He thought, luckily Julia had not cursed him like that. But then again, if letting her curse him once could make her change her mind and come back, then he would accept the scolding too. And right after that, he felt a little sad. That classmate's wife had been able to forgive her husband and allow him to return to the family. So why could Julia not do the same? She had truly cut all ties with him. Even at the divorce hearing, her face had remained completely calm. When he got the judgment, he could not hold himself up any longer and dropped to his knees in front of Julia. He remembered that he had said quite a lot, but she did not even want to spare him a single glance. Pablo had once assumed that it was the gap in their social standing that made Julia tolerant and yielding toward him. He was wrong. It was love. Once that love disappeared, he was no different from a stranger. At last, his heart truly died, like a walking corpse. He returned home. When faced with his mother's concerned questioning, he finally exploded. He smashed the house to pieces. Isn't all of this your fault? You kept arguing with my dad and never knew how to give in. Well, look what happened now. Julia learned it too. His mother stormed off in fury. From then on, time seemed to move more and more slowly. Pablo grew too lazy to keep track of it. The only thing that made him feel the passage of time was the occasional news he heard about Julia. She got promoted. She went traveling. She bought a new property. She was leaving, going abroad to study. Her company was sending her because of her outstanding work performance. Julia shared a guide on social media about taking her cat through customs. My furry baby is already 13 years old. For all these years, it has watched me climb higher and higher, one step at a time. So no matter where I go, I'll take it with me. I will never leave it behind. Pablo read and reread those lines, trying to guess what Julia had been feeling when she wrote them. She must have been very happy. And as for him, he probably would never be happy again.